has taken the most extreme, liberated position. He likes people for what they are and believes in their physicality, their shape and way of moving, for what it is.
Yeah. It's an ambition to see people this way.
Yeah.
She captured something, but not something that I am or have achieved. It's something that requires for every person and for all the time looking for that thing they are.
Thank you.
Everything, every philosophical position is totally screwed up by the fact that people are unique. There's no generality possible.
L'incontro con Yuri, il danzatore sloveno per il quale ha deciso di ricostruire Bound, che è un lavoro del 1982 che noi abbiamo visto ieri sera ed è stato accolto molto bene dal pubblico, e soprattutto come è avvenuto il processo di trasmissione di questo lavoro che era da lei interpretato.
About the process of transmission of this work that was interpreted by you.
First of all, let me say that Mr. Konyar and I, with all awareness, have embarked on an impossible conversation, which we are enjoying very much. Maybe what's most important about what we're doing is not the direct effort of transmission of any kind, but as we strive, as we try to discuss dance and the basis of dance, as we try to look for that extreme liberated position, even within ourselves, as what we just are and what we just do, in the effort and in the warmth of the conversation, maybe we get a little glimpse of each other's paths.
Di un partnering elettivo con la danzatrice Lisa Nelson che è qui presente, a cui farei un applauso. Sì. Vi chiedo qual è stata e qual è la forza di questa intesa?
Among you.
Not possible to describe, yes. I'm sure nobody needs to have this described.
Un compositore soprattutto religioso, autore per la gran parte di messe, passioni, cantate sacre soprattutto. Per altri invece è un architetto delle forme, un costruttore perfetto, di forme anche mondane. Il filosofo Gilles Deleuze parla di Bach come colui che ha avuto la capacità di rendere profano il sacro e viceversa. Per lei invece che cosa ha rappresentato la musica di Bach?
Through the fingers of Glenn Gould, it was an extraordinary percussion. The piano is a percussion instrument. Glenn played it as a percussionist, I believe. And as for what Bach was, I think it's true that he came at a moment where his musical architecture was very persuasive. I'm talking about the arrival of an instrument that is so difficult to tune and to maintain that the rest of the music world had to change structurally to accommodate the piano. So that was too bad. But John Cage used to say that prior to Bach, there were 14 or 15 different musical modes commonly played in Europe, and afterwards one. For him, this was a problem. For me, as a much more naive person, it wasn't so much a problem. And yet I felt like I didn't understand the one mode that Bach proposed. I had listened to the Goldberg all of my adult life. At a certain point, I started to, when Glenn Gould produced his second major studio recording of it in the early 80s, I was curious about the difference between young Glenn Gould and, as it turned out, Glenn Gould at the end of his life. The difference was worth pursuing and became the foundation for the music, which eventually, after listening a lot, I ended up using, which was half of the performance from the early recording and half from the last recording. Then, unfortunately, I heard a recording I liked even better from Switzerland in 1957, a live performance that I just thought was so smashing that I was sorry I had committed already to the performances that I chose. If I were to go back to this piece, which I stopped in the early 90s, if I were to go back, I would go back to 1957 and Glenn Gould's fingers on that night. Isn't it great for music that we can record it, if only because it allows us so much more access to it. And yet, to be there on that night would be so much the better moment. I would never have wanted, however, to dance live to Gould's playing. I would have been the recordings gave me time, or gave my nervous system time to accommodate all the music. So over and over and over again, dancing to it and choosing different pathways through it. It's a bit like a jungle of notes, you know, the Goldberg. It's so many fingers, so busy, my goodness. And so it was an exploration for me of this phenomena, not of the grandeur of Bach, and not of the phenomenal qualities of Glenn Gould, as just, once you have the two of them together, what's it like? What's it like in there? That was my journey.
Come e quando ha compreso l'importanza del guardare attraverso il corpo e ascoltare attraverso la pelle?
the importance of that grew on me very slowly. I would say that the skin, which is the largest organ of the body, is not well understood in the West. Don't know if it is in any culture. There's much about it that is culturized, made taboo, disregarded. There's much about it that is not appreciated. I think the nature of the unconscious mind is strongly related to the nature of our, what's the word, the diaphragm, the permeable nature of our surface. As a dancer, you're often confronted with human elements and events and pretensions. With contact improvisation came a big research into the language of skin and exchange. Astonishingly, it was there. It wasn't so much an artistic research as what the kind of event that happens when you suddenly realize something has been there all along, unnoticed. And this is something culture does to us and for us, which is to keep us mentally channeled. And once you see the channel, what the channels are, especially of the senses, you come to ask if the Descartesian question is appropriate, and if the idea that we have an inside and an outside. There's something outside us and a different something inside us, if that's appropriate. And yeah, it just gives you slightly different take on what's going on outside the cultural. I say cultural, I might say social, I might say familial, I might say meme. We allow ourselves to be channeled, we allow ourselves to be, we are sometimes channeled without our permission. We're channeled all the time through the media. I think it's interesting to look, or to realize that you can go beyond everything you know, because you don't know everything yet. And so there's going to be this place just outside your boundaries that you will recognize when you get there.
Microphone, if possible.
Maybe you can raise the mic.
Sorry. Oh, yes.
Thank you.
May I first congratulate you for the Golden Lion and for your reminiscences of your first visit to Venice. For anybody who is accustomed to live in this town, it's a great pleasure to hear what you said about it. Now, the second thing I wanted to tell you, I was always amazed. I was in New York for some time, and I think I was very young, and I went to the Armory where you produced a rather exceptional event with an huge inflated polyethylene canvas. And I tried to talk to some of the people who were working with you, and what I remember is that you were very sensitive to the position of the little guy. I mean, the person who hardly exists because no one notices him. And the idea that anybody could, in a way, exercise themselves and have a weight in dance or in art was very moving. I think you've done a tremendous amount of work with disabled people also, with blind people, asking them to dance and to move according to the music. How did this sort of sensitivity to those who are less able, who are less favored, hit you from the beginning? Thank you.
I spoke earlier about the uniqueness of each of us. That uniqueness we call it disability or less able or whatever, but it's just more unique qualities. The perception you get when you work with people whose qualities are very different than yours, like the conversation with Mr. Conjar, where we sometimes feel an edge of something that we're sharing. This I find extraordinarily strong when I'm with somebody who can't see or can't hear or can't move. Something is drawn from me to make me try to perceive what their reality is. It's almost comical how we fail in this effort. We can see intellectually how important it is and how democratic it is to see things this way, you know, from somebody else's point of view. It makes a lot possible that we try to do it, but it takes, this is what I meant about the constant striving. So I don't think I became sensitive. I think I was made sensitive by the actual rigors of doing the work. I became more sensitive. The people are not a generality of people with disabilities. They are each unique people. And the openness that they require to be developed so that the communication can be full and rich is the gift of the work. Most times you're not required to be very open. Maybe children, old people, your family, maybe not your family, you know. Or maybe you close to the child and maybe you become the disciplinarian and for their own good don't see things from their perspective, try to make them see things from an adult perspective, whatever, you know. But in this work, there were just so many moments of I mean, I don't really understand the idea of telepathy, you know, transmitting ideas through, but there seems to be moments when you in your own mind break through whatever is between you and another person, and there is communication. And that was the training, looking for that moment and looking for its the support that moment brings in the relationship. Thank you for asking that question. I really appreciate it.
Vorrei sapere se e quanto ha considerato e considera il suo lavoro artistico anche come un atto politico.
You know, I suspect that all art is political. All art is in the body politic, arising from it in various places, you never know where, going too much of it. It's a balance. It's a balance. It's very interesting that the church tried to capture art for its own uses. Certainly political bodies try to capture art for propaganda purposes, for communication purposes. They're all the same. Something communicates very well through art. The great thing is, of course, that its source is not predictable. Therefore, it's not controllable in the usual ways. And therefore, it's always going to lead us away from the kind of bless their hearts, you know, the church and the state, they try as hard as they can to deal with humanity, but humanity also has to have a voice and a say in the matter. And so I think art is always going to be, even if it just makes us think, oh, that's not very good, someone could do better, even just that thought is political.
Su queste parole salutiamo e ringraziamo Steve Paxton.